Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Luqmanur Hakim bin Azhar. Inshallah, in this video, I will be presenting the case review of Saad Marwi and Chan Huan Hua, which was decided in 2001 in MLJU Unreported, page number 761. First, let us take a look at the facts of this case. The appellant, he was a farmer and he was farming on the land of the respondents. He was renting on the land of the respondents. On the other hand, the respondents were the owner of the land that the appellant rented, and they also intended to buy the subject property. In this case, the subject property were two pieces of land which was owned by the appellant. So, basically, what happened in this case? On 11 November 1975, both parties, the appellant and the respondents, they entered into a sale and purchase agreement. The agreement of purchase of two pieces of land that was owned by the appellant just now. And it was also stated that the amount of 4,200 ringgit was paid by the respondents as the deposit of the full price of the land. However, the title of the land was unclear because it was owned by the appellant by their custom at that time. So the respondents asked the appellant to clear the title of the land before the appellant can sell the land. The appellant was given 1 year to clear the title of the land, but he was procrastinated. Why? Because he was actually reluctant to sell the land to the respondents. And yes, he procrastinated until the date of 24 October 1979. It was 4 years later, and the title of the land was still unclear. And on this date, at last, the appellant wrote a letter to terminate the agreement. So he did not want to sell the land anymore. And he also returned the deposit of 4,200 ringgit. The respondents, however, refused to terminate the agreement, but they did not bring action until the later date, 25 May 1981. And let us take a look at the procedural history in this case. So basically, the case was first tried in the High Court. It was brought by the respondents who were the plaintiff during the trial. So what were the claims of the plaintiff? They claimed for specific performance. They wanted the court to instruct Saad Marwi to perform his obligation on the contract. And second, they claimed for damages. The claim was allowed and they awarded damages for the plaintiff. Because of that, the appellant or the defendant during the trial, he brought this case to the Court of Appeal. And these three are the legal issues that I have listed out from the case. First, whether the doctrine of unconscionable bargain could be applied in Malaysia, because according to Judge Gopal Sri Ram, this was the first time where he heard the case of unconscionable bargain. Second, if the doctrine could be applied, did the respondents have obtained an unconscionable bargain over the appellant on the purchase of the subject property? And the third legal issue, whether the respondents' claim would be dismissed on the ground of laches. Okay, next, let us take a look at the arguments by the counsel. For the first ground, the ground of unconscionable bargain. First, the appellant argued that they had established a case of unfair advantage. However, it was argued by the respondents, although the case of unfair advantage was established, the appellant had agreed to sign the agreement on his own free consent. and it was later argued by the appellant, although he signed the agreement, but the appellant was in no position to dictate any terms of payment. Why? Because he was renting from the respondents. So basically, his life was depending on the respondents. So if the respondents suddenly said that you cannot rent on my land anymore, of course, life of the appellant would be threatened. So that is why the appellant was in no position to dictate any terms of payment here. Another thing in this case, the deposit that I mentioned just now, the amount of 4,200 ringgit, it was stated that it was paid by the respondents, but it was not paid. It was a set off. I mean, remember, the appellant was renting on the land of the respondents. So the respondents said, you don't have to pay the rent, but the amount of the rent should be meant as a set off for the deposit, the amount of 4,200 ringgit. So it was argued by the respondents, if the appellant was unhappy about the set off, he could have said so during the outset. But the appellant was in no position to dictate any terms of payment. Let's say if he said, no, I don't want to, and the respondent said, okay, go away, you cannot rent on my land anymore. So of course, the life of the appellant would be threatened, and therefore, reluctantly, he agreed on the terms. And furthermore, during the execution of the agreement, the appellant was alone. He had no separate legal advice. It was stated that during the execution of the agreement, there were only the appellant, the respondents, and the lawyer who was representing the respondent. The agreement was also drafted in English. The appellant did not understand English, so he did not really understand the terms in the agreement. For the second ground, the ground of laches, it was argued by the appellant, the respondents delayed for 19 months to bring the suit. The appellant had stated his intention to terminate the contract, but the respondents did not bring any action until 19 months later, which was on 25 May 1981. However, the respondents argued that the plea of laches was not applicable. Why? Because the plea of laches is only restricted to the remedy of specific performance. It could not be applied for the remedy of damages. But the appellant claimed that the claim of the respondents should be dismissed from the very beginning. Before the trial, it should be dismissed. So, what was the decision of the court? Let us see the judgment. First, the doctrine of unconscionable bargain is applicable in Malaysia. Second, the agreement between the appellant and the respondents was an unconscionable bargain. And third, the ground of laches, it was recognized, and the respondent's claim should be dismissed on the ground of laches. In conclusion, the appeal of the appellant was allowed, and the order of the judge during the trial was set aside. Let us take a look at the ratio decidendi on why judges made such decisions. First, it was stated by Judge Gopal Sriram, the courts in Malaysia may adopt the English doctrine by virtue of Section 3, subsection 1, paragraph A of the Civil Law Act 1956. At that time, during this case, the doctrine of unconscionable bargain was not stated in any act or any case. This was the first time. So the judge decided, okay, we bring this doctrine of unconscionable bargain into Malaysia. Second, was there any unconscionable bargain between the parties? First, the set-off for the payment of the deposit was unfair to the appellant. There was only a set-off from the renting of the appellant. And second, appellant had no separate legal advice. The agreement was also drafted in English. It's not fair for the appellant. And lastly, he procrastinated to clear the title of the land. He was reluctant to sell the land. And for the last ground, the respondents took 19 months to file the case from 24th October 1979 until 25th May 1981. The ground of laches was successful. For my analysis for this case, we take a look at how the judge really examine on how they can apply the doctrine of unconscionable bargain. They really observe how other countries apply the doctrine of unconscionable bargain, and then by virtue of Civil Law Act 1956, they applied the doctrine of unconscionable bargain in Malaysia. Therefore, I rest my case here. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.